Welcome back to Wilson Dittman Sports here on YouTube, where we talk about everything related to Nebraska football, whether that's players, whether that's staff, whether that's recruiting, right here on this channel. So if you like the content, please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. We got a jam-packed episode for you, but don't go anywhere anytime soon because we also have a double header, basically. Another video coming out on Friday talking about the massive recruiting weekend ahead of us. I didn't really want to include that into this video, but just kind of, there's two different topics. So we'll address spring ball first, and then we have a massive recruiting episode coming for you on Friday. So don't go away for that. So if you do like the content, again, subscribe. And if you do subscribe, please comment that you subscribed, and I will personally respond to every single one of those comments. So without further ado, let's get started. Spring ball finally upon us. I'm recording this on Tuesday night, so only 2 days of spring ball so far, but Matt Rhule talked to the media on Monday, and I kind of want to run over what he said, my insight, my takes on that. So just kind of looking at my notes here. First thing he mentioned was really some roster news, right? We talked about some players who I thought would be gone, and some of those players did end up leaving. Tyreek Johnson was a guy I was adamant about we needing to move on from. And Matt Rhule announced that he is gone, okay? And Tyreek Johnson's a sad story. Just kind of a bust out of high school. He's a 5-star. He never played Ohio State. And I told you this, throughout my videos, and I said this before, even off camera, back when we got him 2 years ago from Ohio State. That was a terrible get from Scott Frost. He had never played any meaningful snap at Ohio State, but because he was good 4 years ago in high school, we took him. And he provided absolutely nothing for us in the 2 years he was here. So that was long overdue. Chris Hickman was the next one that Matt Rhule announced was gone. Another guy who I told you I'd like to see gone unless he had an absolutely great spring. He was a guy who just couldn't stay healthy. He was solid every now and then, but he never played an entire season, and he was just the most non-reliable player we've seen in a long time. Unfortunate, a Burke product from Omaha. Again, he's retiring from football. He's not entering the portal or anything. I think that's the right move. Again, nice guy, but he could never get on the field, never stay on the field. So that's a problem. And a guy, again, both those guys I said needed to be gone in my last video or just throughout my videos. And the last one was kind of a surprise to a lot of people, James Carney. Now, James Carney, again, tight end, he was from Norris, second-year player, or third-year player, excuse me. Wow, time is going by fast. James Carney was an interesting case. I really liked him as a prospect. Really fast. He was one of the fastest tight ends in that class. He ran like a 4.6, I think, at the tight end position. Maybe even a 4.5. He was really fast, but struggled getting weight on early in his career here. And at the end of the day, although he was fast and although he had the athleticism, he really wasn't a Power 5 tight end unless a miracle happened and we didn't have a great development staff for that to happen. Again, hasn't entered the portal yet. I would think he's retiring from football. That could be possible. Or he could just, try his luck in a group of 5 or maybe MAC, but FCS football. He was originally committed to Miami of Ohio, so maybe they'd be interested again. That was a little bit of a surprise to a lot of people, though. And again, the tight end room, we talked about in the last video. There's a lot of bodies, but there's not a lot of straight-up talent. That's my take on it, right? You have Fedoni. Okay, let me rephrase. There's a lot of bodies, but there's not a lot of production. There's talent. Fedoni's talented, no production. Arik Gilbert, talented, no production. I'd like to think A.J. Rollins is pretty talented, no production. So some bodies in that room had to go as a result, and 2 of them were announced today. Another thing that Matt Rhule announced on Monday were Anthony Grant and Tommy Hill being suspended from the team and not practicing. I'm not sure the reasoning. I'm sure maybe some people know the reasoning, but I like to think it's one of 2 reasons. Why? Specifically Anthony Grant. One, grades. And this is something that Anthony Grant struggled with in the past. That's something he struggled with early in his career, back when, the first time around before he went JUCO. And then with Tommy Hill, I like to think it's probably the same thing. But another thing, or another reason, is just being late to practice or feeling like they have an edge over other players. And again, if you don't understand, let me rephrase. It's just Scott Frost, kind of the way he was and his style of coaching opened the door for a lot of players to feel like they were superior to other players. So they didn't feel like they had the same responsibilities. And they got away with it all the time. Matt Rhule is not going to put up with that. He's not going to put up with a certain player being late to practice just because he rushed for 900 yards last year, like Anthony Graham. He's not going to put up with a player, not putting in the work just because they played as a true freshman at Arizona State, like Tommy Hill. So those could be reasons why they're suspended. I don't know. I don't know exactly, but all I know, and you'll hear it from Matt Rhule all the time, is that accountability is number one. And every player's treated the same. And I like to think those are probably the reasons why they're not with the team right now. They're suspended. I really want to talk about really quickly, though, Matt Rhule's approach to press conference, because I love it. I absolutely love it, because years and years of Scott Frost press conferences were terrible. Okay, this dude was quiet. He didn't share with you any info. We didn't know who was injured. We didn't know who was off the team. You'd have to specifically ask him about it, and he'd dance around the question. Matt Rhule just, on his own accord, just listed players that were injured. He listed players who were off the team. He listed players who were suspended. And again, that could be because of two reasons. One, he was just in the NFL, and you have to do that in the NFL, right? Like every time in the NFL when they're going off and they're starting their press conferences midweek, they list it off, right? And they list it off online. They have injury reports. So he might be used to that because of the Panthers, or just his personality. And I think it is his personality that lists it off. There's no hiding, right? Scott Frost did that all the time. He'd hide. He'd dance around it. He wouldn't share with you any details. We had no idea, right? We didn't know Adrian Martinez had a broken jaw until after the season, or by the last game of the year. Like, we didn't know that. We didn't know anything going. Adrian was banged up his entire career, and we barely knew about it, right? That's not going to fly with Matt Rhule. He's going to tell you. He's going to tell you straight up. You won't have to have an inside scoop to injuries. He's going to tell you straight from the source, which I love. And speaking of injuries, I want to talk about some of the injuries he mentioned. Two of them specifically. Casey Thompson is one that he's talked about before, but Casey's going to be limited all spring. I think that's a great idea. Of course, Casey had a hand injury and among other things going on. He's still, again, he had a thumb injury back when he was with Texas, and he still hasn't fully recovered from that. So there's a lot of reasons definitely to see Casey limited in spring ball. That's good. Another one that's interesting, or not really interesting, but kind of expected, is Fidone. And Fidone, he basically said Fidone's completely healthy. Fidone is absolutely completely healthy. We're still limiting him, though, because that's what you have to do at this point with Thomas Fidone. 2 ACL tears in 2 years. He's barely been on the field. And honestly, I don't think he should have ever been on the field coming back from those ACL tears. At this point, this is just what you have to do, is limit him. And I know it sucks for Thomas Fidone specifically. Rhule mentioned that Thomas was not happy about it. He wants to be on the field. He wants to be practicing completely. But you just can't do that with this guy. You got to play it cool, because sooner or later you got to get his presence on the field. We can't have any risks whatsoever. So that was interesting. Again, something that's expected. I was not a fan of playing Fidone ever, because we played him the first time around when he was coming back from his first ACL tear. We played him against Wisconsin. We just played him snaps. I wasn't a fan of that. That was dumb to me. There's no incentive in doing that. There is absolutely zero incentive in risking another injury when he's in the game for 2 snaps. Like, what are you going to learn playing 2 snaps? You're not learning much. Okay, it takes more than a handful of snaps to get development going in players. So there was no reason to even play him in the first place. So that was stupid by Frost and company. And I'm glad that Matt Rhule is switching this approach, which is something that I've been preaching and longing for a long time when it comes to Thomas Fidone and just keeping him healthy, because we need him. We need him in the future. Let's look at my other notes here. So, okay. Yeah. Here were a couple others, which I thought were interesting. Position changes. And there were 3 notable ones. Again, younger players here. So first one's Brody Tagaloa. We recruited him. I think I think it was Tony Tuiotti's last recruiting edition here. And he was like originally a DN, then we switched him to tight end, and now he's going back to DN. I still have no idea why we switched him to tight end, because watching his huddle film back then, he was clearly better at DN. Basically, every single Power 5 offer he had was to play DN, and we just switched him to tight end for no reason. That really didn't make any sense to me. He did play tight end in high school, but didn't really make much sense to me. But Rhule and company are switching him back to DN, definitely where he should be. Get the Polynesian pipeline going on that D-line. You guys know how it is, man. The second one is Jake Applegate. So he's switching basically from D-line or outside linebacker to tight end. So they basically swapped the two. Jake Applegate, obviously, coming out of Lincoln. This is his second year. He was solid in high school, man. He was really solid in high school. Lincoln Southwest, I believe. Might have been Southeast. One or the other. Let me look it up. This is gonna bother me, but he was a really solid player. I get another one there where I was surprised that we put him at Lincoln Southeast. By the way, I was surprised we put him at outside linebacker originally, because tight end was his by far better position in high school, and there was a lot of questionable moves at the end of Scott Frost's career here that I didn't agree with. So it kind of makes sense that we're moving him back, and Rhule's like, hey, why did we put you at linebacker originally? We need to get you at tight end because that's your better position. So two really good moves there. The last position change, I don't want to say I have a problem with, but I was really surprised to hear. I was driving to school this morning, and I heard about it. I was like, Janarian Bonner, second-year player out of Atlanta, Georgia. Really, a guy that I've talked about a lot in the last couple of videos, saying that I think he's going to be a big prominent player for us. Is switching basically to a hybrid tight end position. On Huskers.com, it has him listed as a tight end now. I don't love that. Janarian Bonner is a guy who's so athletic, who can run a 4.4 speed. You know, a high 4.4 speed, granted, but he's a guy who can do it. He's a guy who's agile. He's a guy who can go up and catch those 50-50 balls. He's, in my opinion, a perfect resemblance of a wide receiver X. There's no reason, in my opinion, to move him to a hybrid tight end spot. Like, why put his hand in the dirt? That's not his best skill set. Out of high school, he was 195. His weight was 195. Let's see it right now. His weight is 200. So, like, I'm confused, and again, I haven't seen Satterfield's offense yet. They're obviously going to make tweaks to it. Watching a lot of South Carolina, there wasn't a lot of hybrid tight end action. Same thing with Rhule. I mean, it's not something that you see a lot. And Rhule is basically saying we want a tight end, we want a guy who can play tight end, wide receiver, running back. Is really Janarian Bonner your guy to do that? 6'3" in the backfield? So I didn't like that move. Again, he's 200 pounds right now. If you want to put his hand in the dirt, you're gonna have to put 20 more pounds on him. Not a great get. It reminds me of when they were like messing around with Chris Hickman, and I think Scott Frost really screwed up Chris Hickman's career as well, because Scott Frost could have decided whether he wanted him at tight end or wide receiver, and he he swapped him back and forth every offseason, it seemed like, and it screwed up his career, along with the fact that he couldn't stay healthy. So this doesn't make any sense to me. You're taking away Janarian Bonner's best assets and making him put on pounds as a hybrid tight end. Again, I haven't seen the hybrid tight end position, right? It could just be, it could mean nothing, really, honestly. It could just be smoke and mirrors. But it's very, very weird to me that this was the move that they chose to make. And we'll definitely look on that more in the future once we see games and if they stick with this. And just my analysis of it. But I don't think this is a good move. Another thing that Rhule mentioned, or not Rhule mentioned, but Rhule talked about a lot recently is Gabe Ervin. All right. So let's talk about Gabe Ervin right now. This is a guy who is really interesting to me. Obviously, we know how he played as a true freshman, played well in the first couple games of the year in 2020, or 2021, I should say. Then barely played in 2022, coming back from injury, ACL tear in 2021. So, interesting case. He was also a guy, like I mentioned last video, he was on the edge whether he should have transferred last offseason. He was thinking about transferring. One of his buddies from Buford, which he committed here, I mean, Malik Williams was his name, committed here as a defensive back, and then in the same class, and then transferred. And Gabe Ervin was kind of on the edge. He was like, I don't know if I want to transfer as well. But he ended up sticking it out. But Gabe Ervin's a very interesting case. He's a guy who has good speed, not great speed, but good speed. Pretty quick. I think he's a really smart back, and that's kind of something we saw in 2021. I just think Rhule loves this dude. Rhule talks about him all the time. Great work ethic, he says. Loves his traits as a running back. It's definitely a Matt Rhule style running back. I said before, I wouldn't be surprised if Gabe Ervin is running back 1 or 2 for you going into the year. We'll see what happens with the whole Anthony Grant situation. I already went out and said I don't think Anthony Grant's going to start no matter what because A.J. Allen's there. But the Gabe Ervin hype is very weird. And they love him so much. This dude talked to the media the other day. This dude, he talked to the media. He was hyping up Rhule. Like, Rhule's hyping up Ervin, and Ervin's hyping up Rhule. He was basically saying how Rhule is detail-oriented, like his old coaching staff in high school. You know, he was saying how much he appreciated Rhule. It's like, you know, that speaks volumes. So that's something that to really keep an eye on. Well, especially the running back room as a whole, because people aren't talking about that, but that is a huge running back battle going on right now. Okay, Gabe Ervin, Anthony Grant, A.J. Allen. That's huge. Anybody could come out of that room by the time it's all said and done. So definitely, nobody's really talking about it. I don't hear a lot of beats talking about that. I don't hear a lot of fans talking about that. The running back battle might be the most real battle on the team. Like, I think the Casey Thompson versus Jeff Sims battle is going to be a real battle at quarterback, but I don't think it'll be as entertaining as a running back battle when it's all said and done. So that's, again, keep an eye on that. Very, very interesting. A couple other things I wanted to mention before we get out of here. Excuse me. First one is single-digit players, right? Single-digit numbers specifically. If you go on Huskers.com, look at the roster right now, there is not a single player who has a single-digit number, 1 through 9. I love this. I mean, it seems kind of insignificant, granted, but think of it like a black shirt, right? The times are gone of giving, you know, a single-digit number to a complete random true freshman. Like, Jake Applegate got a 0 last year. That's stupid, right? Jake Applegate doesn't deserve a 0. He doesn't deserve a single-digit number. He didn't do anything. He wasn't a 5-star recruit. So gone are the days of giving them to random people, right? And this is something, like, it's a whole hierarchy that, you know, if you ever played high school football, you know it's a real thing. Single-digit numbers are kind of a representation of how good you are, right? If you are a top-end player, you get that single-digit number. You get to pick your number. So the same thing as being, you know, right here is the same thing as here, where the best players will be able to get, you know, those single-digit numbers, the ones that they want. Love that approach. Love it. I think it's a really good, you know, it's just kind of transcending the whole hierarchy thing, right? Like, put in the work and you'll be rewarded. It's like black shirts. It's exactly like black shirts. So that's something, again, it's kind of petty. It's definitely kind of petty. And it might not even work, but it's very interesting. It's kind of something that, I was tired of looking at the roster every year and seeing players who are complete nobodies get really cool numbers, right? Like, that was dumb to me. So, very, very interesting to see that. I'm trying to find something else to talk about here. Oh, yeah. But another thing that Matt Rhule talked about is basically how coachable this team is. Like, he went on a limb, he said, I don't know if this team's good or not. I'll have to rewatch the film of practice. I'll have to, look back at it. I have no idea if this team's good or not. I do know, and he emphasized this so many times, he said the team is very coachable. That's a good sign. That's a great sign. It means that no matter what, this team is trying to win ball games, right? This team does not have bad culture in a way, right? That's what he means. This team isn't reserved. They aren't, still kind of attached to the old staff. They're trying to get better, trying to work. So definitely, something that a lot of people aren't gonna, really think about too much. But when he says that, but it's very true. And it's definitely a good sign. So there we go, guys. That's basically all the notes I had so far. Whew, spring ball's finally here, man. It's finally here, but do not go anywhere soon. Get a jam-packed episode coming to you on Friday. I think we have 25 visitors coming this weekend. So I'm going to break down all the players, the impact that's going to have, the impact that's going to have on Nebraska football. This might be the biggest recruiting weekend of all time, so you do not want to go anywhere. That video is dropping on Friday. So if you don't want to miss that, hit the subscribe button and even hit the bell to be the first one to watch the video when it comes out. So again, if you like the content, like the video today, me talking about spring ball, please hit the like button, subscribe, comment. It really helps me out. Again, I'm trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers, so that would help me out. Again, I just love talking Nebraska football with you guys and sharing my insight. And again, it's a collaborative space. If you guys disagree with me, please comment. I'll respond. And we're trying to get live streams going in the future, which would be awesome to build the community up. So, yeah. But again, that's gonna end it for me here on Wilson Dittman Sports. And again, don't go anywhere soon. A lot of content coming. So, have a good one, everybody.